I stared at my laptop screen in complete disbelief, my coffee growing cold as the numbers blurred before my eyes. $24,000 charged to Premium European Travel Solutions. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled through my credit card statement, searching for any logical explanation. This charge appeared 3 days ago, while I was pulling all-nighters at the software company debugging code until my vision went fuzzy. I never booked any trip. I barely leave my Chicago apartment except for work and groceries. My carefully saved house down payment money suddenly felt threatened as panic crawled up my throat, making it hard to breathe. My fingers trembled as I dialed the credit card company's fraud hotline, but something nagged at me first. Maybe I should check with family to see if anyone else had experienced identity theft recently. I called my parents' landline knowing they'd be home on Sunday morning. "Hello, Robert speaking," my father answered in his usual gruff voice. "Dad, it's Finn. I need to ask you something urgent. Have you or Mom heard about any identity theft happening in our family recently?" There was an unusual pause. Identity theft. No, why would you ask that? Someone charged $24,000 to my credit card for some European travel company. I'm freaking out here. Another pause. Then I heard muffled whispers in the background. My mother's voice came through faintly, though she was clearly trying to speak quietly. "Wait, what's the name of the company?" Dad asked, his tone shifting nervously. "Premium European Travel Solutions. Does that ring any bells?" More urgent whispering. Then my father cleared his throat. "Finn, that's probably just some mistake. These things happen all the time. Maybe you should just call the bank and sort it out. Dad, this isn't some small charge. This is $24,000. That's more than half my yearly rent." I'm sure it's nothing serious. Listen, we're heading to church soon, so we can't really talk right now." My mother's voice became clearer in the background. "Robert, just tell him about Madison's trip before he—" "Linda, shush," my father snapped. My blood turned to ice. "What about Madison's trip?" Nothing. Your mother misspoke. We really need to get going." "Dad, what trip? What does Madison have to do with my credit card?" The line went quiet for several seconds. Then my father's voice returned, strained and defensive. "Look, Finn, there might be some explanation for this that we can discuss later. But right now isn't the time. Are you telling me that you know something about this charge? We really have to go. We'll talk later." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my mind racing through the implications. My own parents knew about this charge. They knew about Madison's trip. The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. I grabbed my car keys and drove the 45 minutes to their suburban house in Naperville. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. The tree-lined streets and manicured lawns of their neighborhood usually felt peaceful, but today everything seemed to mock me. I parked in their driveway and noticed something that made my stomach drop. 3 large pieces of expensive luggage sat on their front porch, still sporting colorful tags from various European airports. Bright yellow tags from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. Red ones from Leonardo da Vinci Airport in Rome. Blue tags from Barcelona's airport. I rang the doorbell insistently until my father opened it, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Yeah, Finn, we weren't expecting you. We need to talk now." I pushed past him into their familiar living room, with its floral wallpaper and family photos covering every surface. My mother sat on the couch, wringing her hands and avoiding eye contact. "Whose luggage is on the porch?" I demanded. Before either parent could answer, Madison emerged from the kitchen carrying a steaming mug of coffee. My 25-year-old sister looked radiant, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing what appeared to be a designer blouse I'd never seen before. "Oh, Finn, I was just telling Mom about my incredible 3 weeks in Paris, Rome, and Barcelona." It was absolutely magical. The Louvre, the Colosseum Park Güell, everything exceeded my expectations. My vision started to tunnel. Your 3 weeks in Europe. Yes, it was my graduation gift for finishing my art history degree. The trip was everything I dreamed it would be. First-class flights, luxury hotels, private tours. I even got to take a cooking class in Tuscany. I turned to my parents, who were now standing close together like they were preparing for battle. Did you use my credit card to pay for Madison's trip? My sister laughed, a light, carefree sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard. Of course they did. Family helps family, right? Besides, you make good money at that tech job, and you never spend anything on fun. You practically live like a monk. I save money because I'm trying to buy a house, Madison. Come on. You deserve to do something nice for your little sister. I worked so hard for my degree, and this trip was the perfect way to celebrate. You should be proud that you could give me such an amazing experience. My mother finally spoke up, her voice shaky. Finn, sweetie, we knew you'd understand. Madison has had such a difficult time finding her path after college, and this opportunity seemed so perfect for her. You stole $24,000 from me. We didn't steal anything, my father said firmly. We're family. What's yours is ours, and what's ours is yours. That's how families work. No, Dad, that's not how families work. That's how criminals work. Madison's expression hardened. Don't you dare call our parents criminals. They gave me the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm grateful. Maybe if you weren't so selfish and focused on material things like buying houses, you'd understand what really matters. I felt like I was drowning in their complete lack of understanding about what they'd done to me. I want to see every receipt, every piece of documentation from this trip. I said, my voice steady, despite the rage building inside me. Madison shrugged and pulled out her phone. Fine. I kept everything because I wanted to remember every detail. She began scrolling through photos and screenshots. Here's the itinerary. We booked the premium suite at Hôtel de Crillon in Paris for 8 nights. That was $6,000. Then the executive floor at the Rome Cavalieri for 7 nights. Another $5,000. Finally, the royal suite at Hotel Casa Fuster in Barcelona for 6 nights. 4,000 more. My head was spinning with the numbers. That's 15,000 just for hotels. Oh, that's not including the flights. First-class round-trip tickets were $7,500. Then there were the private tours. $1,500 for the exclusive after-hours Louvre experience, $1,200 for the underground Colosseum tour, and $800 for the private Gaudí architecture tour in Barcelona. I was doing the math in my head, and it wasn't adding up to 24,000. What else? Madison's eyes lit up. The best part, I got to eat at some of the most exclusive restaurants in Europe. Le Meurice in Paris, La Pergola in Rome, and Disfrutar in Barcelona. Those meals were absolutely incredible. My mother jumped in. We wanted Madison to have the full cultural experience. This wasn't just a vacation. It was educational. How much for the restaurants? In about 3,000 total, Madison said casually. But the experiences were priceless. I was still short several $1,000s. Madison, that adds up to about 23,000. What else did you buy? My sister exchanged a glance with our parents before sighing dramatically. Well, I couldn't go to Europe looking like a tourist, could I? I needed appropriate clothes. She led me upstairs to her childhood bedroom, which now looked like a high-end boutique had exploded inside it. Designer dresses, shoes, handbags, and accessories covered every surface. I got this Chanel dress in Paris. It was only $1,800, and it's a classic piece I'll have forever. These Louboutin shoes were $1,200, but they're investment pieces. And this Louis Vuitton bag was $2,200, but it's practically a work of art. I stared at the mountain of luxury goods. How much did you spend on clothes? Only about 7,000, Madison said defensively. And most of it was educational. I learned so much about European fashion and craftsmanship. 7,000 on clothes, Madison. That's more than some people make in 3 months. My father appeared in the doorway. Finn, your sister needed to look presentable for such an important trip. We couldn't have her representing our family poorly in Europe. What about luggage? I asked, remembering the expensive pieces on the porch. Madison brightened again. Oh yes, we got matching Louis Vuitton luggage sets. 3 pieces each for Mom, Dad, and me. My heart stopped. Mom and Dad each got luggage too. Well, of course. They needed new luggage for their own future trips. It was more economical to buy everything at once. The 9-piece luggage collection was $3,000. And the travel accessories, my mother added quietly. Travel adapters, portable chargers, camera equipment, travel insurance. Another $2,000, Madison finished. I was stunned into silence. The total was climbing toward $36,000, not the 24 I'd initially discovered. Finn, sweetie, my mother said gently. We had to get your credit card information somehow. When you came over for dinner 2 weeks ago, your wallet was right there on the kitchen counter when you went to use the bathroom. We just took a quick photo of the front and back. We didn't think you'd mind helping your family. Yuck, you photographed my credit card without my permission. We're family, my father repeated. We shouldn't need permission to help each other out. Madison stepped forward, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Finn, this trip changed my life. I learned so much about art history and European culture. I made connections with gallery owners in Paris and museum curators in Rome. This could open doors for my career that money can't buy. Your career in art history that you just finished studying. Yes, and I have some incredible opportunities already developing because of the people I met. There's a gallery in Chicago that wants to interview me because I have first-hand experience with European art institutions. My parents looked at me expectantly, as if I should be thrilled about Madison's networking opportunities that cost me $36,000. Here's what's going to happen, I said slowly. You're going to contact the credit card company and admit to all these charges. You're going to set up a payment plan to pay me back every single dollar. My father's face darkened. Or what? Or I'll report this as fraud and identity theft, which is exactly what it is. Madison gasped dramatically. You would really call the police on your own family? What you did is a federal crime, Madison. My mother started crying. Finn, please don't destroy your sister's opportunity of a lifetime. She's finally found something she's passionate about, and this trip was the catalyst she needed. My dear, if you report us to the authorities, my father said coldly, you'll be permanently cut off from this family. Think very carefully about what's more important to you, money or family. I looked around the room at my parents and sister, seeing them clearly for perhaps the first time in my adult life. They genuinely believed they were entitled to steal from me, and they were willing to threaten me to protect themselves from the consequences. The next 2 days became a nightmare of phone calls and family pressure that I couldn't have imagined. It started Monday morning when my phone rang while I was trying to focus on work. Finn, it's your Aunt Patricia. I think we need to have a serious conversation. My father's older sister had always been the family matriarch, the one who organized holiday gatherings and settled family disputes. Her disapproving tone immediately put me on edge. I just got off the phone with your father, and I'm extremely disappointed in your reaction to Madison's graduation gift. Family members are supposed to support each other, not threaten each other with legal action. So to Aunt Patricia, they stole $36,000 from my credit card without my knowledge or consent. They didn't steal anything, Finn. They used family resources to help Madison achieve her dreams. There's a big difference. It's my money from my job, from my bank account. Money comes and goes, but family is forever. Your parents have sacrificed so much to raise you and Madison, and now that you're successful, it's time for you to give back. Before I could respond, she continued, Your Uncle Dennis wants to speak with you too. Dennis took the phone, his voice stern and authoritative. Finn, I'm going to give you some advice as your elder. You're making a huge mistake by prioritizing money over family relationships. Your sister had a once-in-a-lifetime educational opportunity, and instead of being proud that you could provide it, you're acting like a selfish child. Uncle Dennis, this isn't about being selfish. It's about them committing credit card fraud. That's a very ugly way to characterize your parents' love for Madison. I think you owe them an apology. The calls continued throughout the week. Tuesday brought a tearful conversation with my 78-year-old grandmother Rose. And Finn's sweetheart Madison came to visit me yesterday, and she was heartbroken. Absolutely heartbroken. She kept crying about how her big brother wants to ruin her dreams and send her parents to jail. Grandma, they used my credit card without telling me. But darling, they're family. Madison told me all about her wonderful trip and how much she learned. She showed me pictures of the beautiful art museums and historic sites. This wasn't some frivolous vacation. This was educational. It was $36,000, Grandma. Money isn't everything, sweetheart. Your sister's happiness and education are worth far more than money. Besides, you're young and successful. You'll make that money back in no time. Wednesday brought a text message from my cousin Jake that made my blood boil. Dude, your parents told everyone that you promised to pay for Madison's trip, and now you're backing out. That's seriously messed up. She was counting on your support, and now you're trying to abandon her. I thought you were better than that. I called Jake immediately. What exactly did my parents tell you? They said you offered to pay for Madison's graduation trip as a surprise, and that she planned the whole thing based on your promise. Now she's already taken the trip, and you're trying to get out of paying for it. They said you're claiming you never agreed to it, but that's obviously not true since she wouldn't have booked everything without your approval. Jake, I never promised anything. I didn't even know about the trip until I saw the charges on my credit card. Come on, Finn. Why would Madison book a $30,000 trip without knowing you'd pay for it? That doesn't make any sense. I realized my parents had crafted a completely different narrative for the extended family. In their version, I was the villain who had made a promise and was now trying to break it. Thursday evening, my parents called to inform me about a family meeting they'd organized for Saturday afternoon. We've invited everyone who cares about this family, my mother said. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Dennis' grandmother Rose Jake and his girlfriend Sarah, your cousins Amanda and Tyler, and Uncle Michael and Aunt Joyce. We're going to sit down like adults and work through this misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Mom. It's fraud. We're going to give you one more chance to do the right thing, Finn. Show up Saturday at 2 in the afternoon, and we'll resolve this as a family. Saturday afternoon, I walked into my childhood home to find 12 family members arranged in the living room like a tribunal. Everyone was looking at me with expressions ranging from disappointment to outright anger. My father stood up and addressed the room. Everyone knows why we're here. Finn made a promise to support Madison's educational trip to Europe, and now he's trying to back out of his commitment. That's not what happened, I said firmly. Madison stood up, her eyes already filled with tears. Finn, I planned this trip based on your promise to support my education. I worked so hard to finish my art history degree, and you said you wanted to give me an amazing graduation gift. I trusted you. The room murmured with sympathy for Madison's tearful performance. I visited some of the most important art museums in the world, she continued. I studied Renaissance masterpieces in person, learned about Baroque architecture firsthand, and experienced modernist movements in their original contexts. This wasn't just tourism. It was the culmination of my academic studies. Grandmother Rose reached over and patted Madison's hand. There, sweetheart. Your brother will do the right thing. Uncle Dennis stood up. Finn, we're not asking you to pay for something frivolous. Madison's education is an investment in her future, and as her older brother, you should be proud to support her academic growth. The total amount is $36,000, I said. Plus, they just made another charge yesterday for $5,000 that they're calling Madison's emergency fund for unexpected trip expenses. Aunt Patricia waved dismissively. $41,000 is a significant amount, but you have a good job and no family responsibilities. Madison's education should be a priority for everyone in this family. My cousin Amanda spoke up. Finn, I know you're practical about money, but this is about more than dollars and cents. Madison's trip gave her experiences that will benefit her entire career. Can you really put a price on that? The room fell silent as everyone waited for my response. I looked around at their faces and realized they all genuinely believed that I had promised to pay for Madison's trip and was now trying to renege on my commitment. Here's the truth, I said quietly. I never promised to pay for anything. Mom and Dad stole my credit card information and made all these charges without my knowledge or consent. The first I heard about any trip was when I discovered the charges on my monthly statement. Uncle Michael frowned. That's a serious accusation, Finn. It's the truth. My father's voice became stern. Finn, we're giving you a final opportunity to resolve this within the family. Accept responsibility for Madison's educational expenses, or face the consequences of abandoning your family when we needed your support. And if I don't agree, my mother's voice was barely a whisper. Then you're no longer welcome in this family. The room was completely quiet as I absorbed the ultimatum. Every single person I'd grown up with, every family gathering and holiday memory, every shared experience that had shaped my childhood, they were all willing to throw that away to protect my parents' theft and Madison's entitlement. I left that family meeting and drove straight to my bank. Monday morning, I walked into the fraud department and requested to speak with a specialist. Jennifer Martinez, the fraud prevention officer, reviewed my account with professional concern. Mr. Anderson, these charges do appear to be unauthorized based on your account history and spending patterns. The amounts are significant and completely outside your normal usage. I want to dispute all of them and file a police report. I understand this is a difficult situation. The charges total $41,000 across multiple transactions. To proceed with the dispute, we'll need you to sign an affidavit stating that these were unauthorized charges. Jennifer explained the process carefully. Once you sign this affidavit, we're legally obligated to treat this as identity theft and credit card fraud. The case will be forwarded to our investigation team and to law enforcement. You should understand that if family members are involved, this will likely result in criminal charges being filed against them. My hands shook as I signed the documents, but I knew I had no choice. The investigation will take several weeks, Jennifer continued. We'll need to verify the transactions, contact the merchants, and coordinate with the police. In the meantime, we'll place a temporary credit on your account for the disputed amounts. Tuesday afternoon, Detective Williams from the Financial Crimes Unit called to schedule an interview. Mr. Anderson, we've received your case file from the bank. Credit card fraud involving this amount of money is a serious felony. If we can prove intent to defraud, the perpetrators could face up to 10 years in federal prison. Detective, these are my parents and my sister we're talking about. I understand that makes this difficult, but the law doesn't distinguish between family members and strangers when it comes to financial crimes. Fraud is fraud regardless of the relationship. Wednesday morning brought a discovery that made my stomach drop. Jennifer called me at work with urgent news. Mr. Anderson, our investigation has uncovered something concerning. These charges for your sister's trip aren't the first unauthorized transactions on your account. We've identified a pattern of smaller charges dating back approximately 1 year. What kind of charges? Chaktiti antatim $8,000 to Naperville Home Improvement 6 months ago. Multiple charges to Madison's College bookstore totaling $3,200 over the past year. Various charges to restaurants and retail stores in your parents' neighborhood. The pattern suggests systematic, unauthorized usage rather than a single incident. I felt sick. How much total? Including the recent trip expenses, we're looking at approximately $53,000 in unauthorized charges over the past 12 months. The scope of the theft was staggering. My parents hadn't just stolen money for Madison's trip. They'd been systematically using my credit for nearly a year. Thursday evening, Madison called me screaming, "Finn, you have destroyed everything." The bank called the hotel in Paris asking questions about the charges. Now everyone knows our family is under investigation for fraud. I'm humiliated. Madison, you committed fraud. Of course there's an investigation. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. I've already posted on Facebook about how my own brother is trying to send our parents to prison because he's jealous of my success. Posted what exactly? That the truth that you're vindictive and selfish and you can't stand to see me happy. I told everyone about how you promised to pay for my trip and are now trying to destroy our family to avoid your obligations. Friday morning brought the call I'd been dreading. Madison's voice was different now, cold and calculating. Or Finn, I need you to understand something very clearly. If you don't drop these fraud charges immediately, I'm going to tell the police that you inappropriately touched me when we were children. My blood turned to ice. What did you just say? You heard me. I'll claim that you molested me as a child, and that this whole fraud accusation is your way of trying to discredit me before I come forward with the truth about your abuse. To Madison, that never happened. Who do you think people will believe, the sweet, innocent sister or the vindictive brother who's trying to send his own parents to prison? I'll say you threatened me to keep quiet all these years, and now that I'm finally strong enough to speak out, you're trying to destroy my credibility. I was speechless. My own sister was threatening to destroy my career and reputation with false accusations of child abuse. Haku, think about what that would do to your precious tech job, Finn. Think about how your co-workers would treat you when they hear you're under investigation for molesting your little sister. Even if the charges don't stick, the suspicion will follow you forever. You would really do that. I'll do whatever it takes to protect our family from your selfishness. You have 24 hours to call the bank and drop all the fraud charges, or I start making some very serious phone calls. After she hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall for an hour. My sister was prepared to falsely accuse me of child sexual abuse to cover up her parents' theft. The family I'd grown up in, the people I'd shared holidays and birthdays and vacations with, were willing to destroy my life to avoid consequences for their crimes. But as I thought about it more, I realized Madison's threat actually revealed something important. She was so desperate to avoid facing consequences that she was willing to commit perjury and file false police reports. Her threat showed exactly how far my family was willing to go to protect themselves, and it strengthened my resolve to see this through. I called Detective Williams and told him about Madison's threat. Detective, I need you to know that my sister just threatened to make false accusations against me if I don't drop the fraud charges. Mr. Anderson threatening to file false police reports in order to obstruct a criminal investigation is itself a serious crime. I'd like you to come in tomorrow so we can document this conversation and add witness intimidation to our case file. Saturday morning, I arrived at the police station carrying a small digital recorder. Detective Williams, I want to show you something before we proceed. I'd spent Friday evening researching Illinois recording laws and confirmed that I could legally record conversations as long as one party consented, which would be me. I decided to gather evidence of my parents' admissions before they realized the seriousness of their legal situation. But I called my parents last night and recorded our conversation. They admitted to all the unauthorized charges. Detective Williams leaned forward with interest as I played the recording. My father's voice came through clearly. Finn, we've been supporting this family financially for years. We used your credit because we knew you'd want to help Madison achieve her dreams. The $8,000 for home repairs, the money for Madison's college expenses, the trip costs. It's all money we invested in family. My mother's voice joined in. We never thought you'd be so selfish about it, sweetie. We've been telling our neighbors and friends about how successful you are and how you support your family financially. It makes us proud to have such a generous son. Madison's voice was audible in the background. Just tell him we'll pay him back eventually when I get a job in the art world. Detective Williams nodded grimly. This recording contains clear admissions of guilt. They acknowledge using your credit without permission, and they admit to multiple instances of unauthorized charges. Starcom. There's more, detective. During the conversation, I discovered they haven't just been using my credit cards. They've been forging my signature on other financial documents. I played another section of the recording where my father's voice became defensive. The loan applications required a co-signer with good credit, Finn. We just signed your name because we knew you'd want to help the family if we asked. Loan applications. My mother's voice answered. Just a small home equity loan for $30,000. We needed money for the roof repairs and Madison's graduation expenses. Detective Williams looked stunned. Mr. Anderson, your parents have been committing identity theft on multiple levels. Credit card fraud, signature forgery, and loan fraud. This is far more serious than we initially realized. I had no idea about any loans until yesterday. We'll need to contact the lending institution and add these charges to our investigation. Mr. Anderson, your family is looking at federal charges for conspiracy to commit identity theft. Monday morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Brandon Pierce, a longtime family friend who worked at First National Bank, called me with urgent information. Finn, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but your parents approached me 3 months ago asking about accessing your bank accounts. What did they say exactly? They claimed they were helping you manage your finances while you were busy with work. They asked about procedures for adding authorized users to your accounts and about your account balances and credit limits. My heart sank. What did you tell them? I told them they'd need your written authorization for any account access, but I got the impression they were fishing for information. Your dad kept asking about your savings account balance and your credit score. Brandon, did they mention anything about already using my accounts? Actually, yes. Your mom mentioned something about how they'd been helping you with some expenses and wanted to make it official. I thought that was strange because you've never struck me as someone who would need financial help. This revelation meant my parents had been planning their scheme for months, not just impulsively using my credit for Madison's trip. Tuesday afternoon, I received a call that made me realize the full scope of my family's deception. Aunt Patricia's voice was shaking with anger. Finn, I need to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Did your parents ever borrow money from your accounts for home repairs? I know, Aunt Patricia. Why would you ask that? Because 6 months ago, when Uncle Dennis and I were having financial problems with the restaurant, your parents offered to lend us $15,000. They said it came from your account and that you had specifically wanted to help family members in need. I felt dizzy. They told you the money came from me. Yes. They made a big point of saying that you were doing well financially and wanted to support family. We've been feeling guilty about accepting money from your savings, and now we find out you never knew about it. Aunt Patricia, where did that money actually come from? I have no idea, but clearly not from you. Dennis and I have been working overtime at the restaurant to pay you back money that apparently wasn't yours to begin with. Wednesday brought an even more shocking discovery. Uncle Dennis called with his own revelations. Finn, your parents borrowed $35,000 from the restaurant's business account 8 months ago. They said they needed it for emergency medical expenses for your grandmother. Grandmother Rose. Yes, they claimed she needed surgery that wasn't covered by Medicare, and they needed to pay the hospital up front. We cleaned out the restaurant's emergency fund to help family. Uncle Dennis' grandmother Rose never had any surgery. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched for nearly a minute. "On those bastards," he finally whispered. "They stole from my business." Thursday morning, Detective Williams called with updates that made my head spin. Mr. Anderson, our investigation has uncovered evidence of a much larger fraud scheme. Your parents appear to have been systematically defrauding multiple family members over the past 2 years. Multiple family members. We've identified unauthorized charges on your Aunt Patricia's retirement account, missing funds from your Uncle Dennis's business account, and forged loan applications using your cousin Jake's identity. Your family has been running what essentially amounts to a Ponzi scheme using family relationships. How much money total? We're still calculating, but preliminary estimates suggest over $150,000 across multiple victims. Friday afternoon brought the confrontation I'd been dreading. My parents called and demanded I meet them at their house for one final conversation. When I arrived, I found them sitting at their kitchen table surrounded by financial documents and legal paperwork. They looked like they'd aged 10 years in the past 2 weeks. Finn. My father began, his voice defeated. "We need to discuss this situation like adults." "You mean the situation where you stole over $50,000 from me and defrauded half our extended family?" My mother started crying. "We never meant for things to go this far. It started small, just a few charges here and there when money was tight. Then Madison needed help with college expenses and we thought you'd understand." "When did it become systematic theft?" My father's shoulders slumped. "When we realized how easy it was and how much you were earning. You seemed to have more money than you needed, and the rest of the family was struggling." Madison appeared from the living room, her earlier defiance replaced by panic. "Finn, the bank investigators called me today. They said I could be charged with conspiracy and money laundering. I could go to prison." "Yes, Madison, you could." But I didn't know it was illegal. I thought parents were allowed to use their children's money for family expenses." I stared at my 25-year-old sister, who had just claimed she thought parents could legally steal from their adult children. The fraud investigation has uncovered everything I told them. The systematic theft from my accounts, the forged loan applications, the money stolen from Uncle Dennis's restaurant, the fake medical emergency for Grandmother Rose. My parents looked at each other with what I can only describe as complete despair. My mother whispered. "What's going to happen to us?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Detective Williams's voice was grim when I answered. "Mr. Anderson, we need you to come to the station. We're issuing arrest warrants for your parents and your sister this afternoon." I spent 6 hours at the police station providing evidence and witness statements, while my parents and Madison were processed and booked. Detective Williams walked me through the charges that would be filed. Your father, Robert Anderson, is being charged with identity theft in the first-degree credit card fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Your mother, Linda Anderson, faces identical charges. Your sister, Madison Anderson, is charged with conspiracy, money laundering, and wire fraud. What kind of sentences are we talking about? Identity theft and credit card fraud at this level are federal offenses. Your parents could each face 8 to 12 years in federal prison. Your sister, as a co-conspirator, is looking at 4 to 6 years. The detective continued. The investigation revealed that your parents have been running this scheme for over 2 years. They used your identity to secure loans, made unauthorized charges on multiple family members' accounts, and created false documentation to support their fraudulent activities. 3 days later, I received a call that completely vindicated my decision to pursue legal action. Detective Williams had more shocking news. Mr. Anderson, we've discovered that your parents were planning to expand their scheme significantly. We found documents in their house showing they were researching your co-workers' personal information, apparently planning to use your workplace relationships to commit additional identity theft. They were going to target my co-workers. It appears so. We found lists of names, addresses, and personal information for at least 8 people from your company. There were also documents suggesting they planned to use your identity to start a fraudulent business and apply for commercial loans. How much money were they planning to steal? Based on the loan applications, we found potentially over $500,000. The scope of their criminal ambitions was staggering. If I hadn't caught them when I did, they might have destroyed dozens of lives. A week later, the bank completed its investigation and restored my credit rating completely. Jennifer Martinez called with the final report. Mr. Anderson, we've reversed all unauthorized charges and restored your credit score to its original level. Additionally, we're implementing additional security measures on your accounts to prevent future unauthorized access. What about the other family members who were defrauded? We're working with law enforcement to help all the victims recover their losses. Your Uncle Dennis should have his business account funds restored within 30 days, and your Aunt Patricia's retirement account has been secured. The criminal trial began 3 months after the arrests. I testified about discovering the charges, the family pressure campaign, and Madison's threats to make false accusations against me. The defense attorney tried to portray this as a family misunderstanding rather than criminal fraud. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, families help each other during difficult times. The defendants made poor choices, but their motivations came from love and desperation, not criminal intent. The prosecutor destroyed this narrative by presenting evidence of the systematic nature of their crimes. This was not a family helping each other. This was a carefully planned criminal enterprise that defrauded multiple victims over a period of 2 years. The defendants showed clear intent to deceive, forge documents, and steal identities for personal gain. Madison took the stand in her own defense and claimed she thought her parents had permission to use family members' credit cards and bank accounts. Her testimony was devastating to her credibility. I assumed that families shared financial resources, she said. I thought it was normal for parents to have access to their adult children's accounts. The prosecutor asked her directly, Ms. Anderson, you're 25 years old with a college degree. Are you seriously telling this court that you believed it was legal for your parents to forge loan applications using your brother's identity? Madison's response was barely audible. I didn't really think about the legal aspects. My parents' testimony was even worse. They continued to claim they were entitled to use my money because I was successful and they had raised me. We sacrificed everything to give our children opportunities, my father said. When Finn became successful, we expected him to give back to the family that made his success possible. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. 6 months after the trial, my parents were sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. They were ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, a total of $168,000. Madison received a suspended sentence of 6 months in county jail, 3 years of probation, and 500 hours of community service. She was also required to undergo financial counseling and psychological evaluation. But the most satisfying moment came during the victim impact statements, when other family members spoke about how my courage in reporting the fraud had saved them from even greater losses. Uncle Dennis stood up and addressed the court. If my nephew hadn't reported this fraud when he did, my family would have lost our business and our life savings. His decision to prioritize justice over family loyalty actually saved our family. Aunt Patricia's statement was equally powerful. I initially blamed my nephew for destroying our family by reporting his parents to the police. Now I understand that he's the one who saved our family by stopping these crimes before they caused even more damage. 6 months after the sentencing, I was settling into my new house, the one I'd originally planned to buy before discovering my family's theft. The down payment I'd carefully saved was intact. My credit score was fully restored, and I'd even received compensation for the emotional distress and time lost dealing with the fraud. More importantly, I'd learned to distinguish between real family and toxic people who happened to share my DNA. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Dennis had become closer to me than ever before. They'd invited me to Sunday dinners at their house where we talked about rebuilding trust and creating healthy family relationships based on respect rather than obligation. You know Finn," Uncle Dennis said during one of these dinners. "I owe you an apology for that intervention meeting. Your parents convinced us that you were the problem when actually you were the only one acting with integrity." Jake called me a month after the sentencing to deliver his own apology. "Dude, I was completely wrong about everything. I let Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda manipulate me into believing their lies about you. I should have known you'd never promise something like that and then back out. Sure, Jake, they were very convincing. They had years of practice manipulating family members. Still, I should have trusted you instead of assuming the worst. I've learned a lot about how abusers use family loyalty as a weapon." The most surprising reconciliation came from Grandmother Rose, who called me on a quiet Sunday afternoon 6 months after the trial. "Finn, sweetheart, I need to tell you something important. I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I realize I was wrong to pressure you the way I did. Grandma, you were manipulated just like everyone else. That's no excuse for an old woman who should have known better. Your parents told me you'd promised to pay for Madison's trip, and I believed them because I wanted to believe that my grandson was generous and successful. But even if you had made that promise, what they did was steal from you." She continued, "I've lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and 7 decades of family drama. I should have recognized the signs of people taking advantage of family relationships." "What signs?" "In the way they always had excuses for why they needed money, but never seemed to have any plan for paying it back. The way they bragged about your success to neighbors while asking for help with their bills. The way they made everyone else responsible for their financial problems." Grandmother Rose's wisdom helped me understand that healthy families support each other through cooperation and mutual respect, not through guilt, manipulation, and theft. My relationship with the extended family members who had pressured me during that terrible intervention meeting evolved in different ways. Some, like Jake and his girlfriend Sarah, recognized how they'd been manipulated and worked to rebuild trust. Others seemed uncomfortable with the reality that they'd supported criminals against an innocent family member. Cousin Amanda never apologized, but she did send me a card on my birthday, acknowledging that family situations can be more complicated than they appear. I interpreted this as the closest thing to an admission of error that I was likely to receive from her. Uncle Michael and Aunt Joyce moved to Florida shortly after the trial, and we haven't spoken since. I suspect they were embarrassed about their role in pressuring me to accept the theft. The most satisfying development came from Madison herself. 8 months after her sentencing, she called me from the community center, where she was completing her required service hours. "Finn, I need to tell you something I should have said a long time ago." "What's that, Madison?" "I'm sorry. Not just for the money, but for everything. For believing I was entitled to your money, for threatening you with false accusations, for trying to turn the family against you." I was genuinely surprised by her directness. The counseling I'm required to attend has helped me understand how messed up my thinking was. I actually believed that I deserved an expensive graduation trip just because I wanted one. and that family members were obligated to provide whatever I wanted. What do you understand differently now? Chuk, that being family doesn't mean people owe you anything. That earning your own way isn't punishment, it's self-respect. And that what our parents taught us about family relationships was actually really toxic. Madison continued, I'm working at a nonprofit arts organization, now making $12 an hour and living in a studio apartment. For the first time in my life, I'm paying for everything myself, and I actually feel proud of what I'm accomplishing. That's good to hear, Madison. I know I can't undo what I did, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted you to know that your decision to report us probably saved my life. If you hadn't stopped us, I would have kept believing that other people owed me success and happiness. Her transformation was genuine. Over the following months, Madison began building an independent life based on her own efforts rather than other people's resources. She earned a promotion at the arts nonprofit and moved into a better apartment that she could afford with her own income. Most importantly, she never again asked me for money or favors. When she needed a co-signer for her new apartment lease, she asked Uncle Dennis, who agreed only after she demonstrated 6 months of consistent income and responsible financial behavior. The experience taught me that real family relationships require boundaries, honesty, and mutual respect. The people who truly cared about my well-being supported my decision to protect myself from financial abuse even when it was difficult. 2 years later, I hosted Thanksgiving dinner in my new house for the family members who had learned to respect boundaries: Aunt Patricia, Uncle Dennis Jake, and Sarah, Grandmother Rose, and Madison. We shared a meal based on genuine gratitude and honest relationships, rather than guilt and manipulation. During that dinner, Uncle Dennis raised his glass for a toast. To Finn, who taught us that sometimes protecting yourself is the best way to protect the people you love. The most profound lesson I learned was that saying no to people who mistreat you isn't selfishness. It's self-respect. Family members who genuinely love you will support your right to establish boundaries and protect yourself from abuse. True family isn't determined by DNA or legal relationships. It's built by people who choose to treat each other with honesty, respect, and genuine care. The people sitting around my Thanksgiving table that year represented my real family, the individuals who had learned from their mistakes and committed to building healthier relationships. My parents were released from federal prison after serving 14 months of their 18-month sentences. They moved to a small apartment across town and have had no contact with me since their release. I heard through Aunt Patricia that they remain convinced they were victims of an ungrateful son rather than perpetrators of financial crimes. I don't feel anger toward them anymore. Just sadness that they chose to prioritize their pride over rebuilding relationships with their children. Madison has attempted to reconnect with them, but they blame her for cooperating with law enforcement and refuse to acknowledge their role in destroying the family. The experience ultimately made me stronger and more confident about recognizing healthy versus toxic relationships. I learned to trust my instincts when people try to manipulate me with guilt or family obligations. Most importantly, I learned that protecting yourself from abuse, even when the abusers are family members, is not only acceptable, but necessary. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, apologize when they're wrong, and work to rebuild trust through their actions rather than their words. My story ended with justice, healing, and the discovery of what real family relationships should look like. Sometimes the best way to honor family is to refuse to enable their destructive behavior. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where family members felt entitled to your money or resources without your permission? How did you handle family pressure to prioritize loyalty over your own well-being? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else who's dealing with similar family manipulation. If this story helped you understand the importance of setting boundaries with toxic family members, Please hit the like button to support others who might be struggling with similar situations. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family dysfunction and building healthier relationships. And please share this video with anyone who might benefit from learning about financial abuse and family manipulation. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it encourages you to prioritize your own well-being and surround yourself with people who truly respect and support you. Remember that real love doesn't require you to sacrifice your financial security or personal boundaries to prove your loyalty.